That's a power button.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Price Boulevard Widening Project Update Community Meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. My name is Juliana Belia. I'm the city's Public Works Director. First, I would like to recognize the dignitaries in the audience. With us, we have Vice Mayor McDowell. We also have Assistant City Manager Yarbrough in the back. And we also have former Commissioner Jones here with us this evening. Thank you for attending. I'd like to introduce our city staff at this time. To my left at the end is Mr. Jerry Traverso. He's our Engineering Division Manager. Next to him is Mr. Ben Newman. He's our Projects Engineer. And Mr. Michael Fear is in the back. He is taping our meeting this evening. And with the consulting firm of American Engineering, Mr. Ryan Forrestel to my left. And next to him is Mr. Bill Adams with American Consulting Engineer. And the gentleman over in the beige light coat is Oliver Rodriguez. Sorry about that. He is with Florida Transportation Engineering. The meeting this evening is being recorded and we'll have video. It can be viewed on the city's website as well as on YouTube following the meeting. I'd ask if everyone could please speak into the microphones when you'd like to speak. If you could come up to the front table, we'll have a microphone here. And if you could speak closely into it, we'll be sure to capture all of your comments. In the back, along the back table, we do have a sign-in sheet if you haven't signed in. And if you'd like to give us your email address, we'd be more than happy to place you on our email listing. And we will then be able to give you periodic updates to the Price Boulevard Widening Project. Okay, at this time, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Ryan Forrestel, who will provide us with a presentation.
Great. Hopefully, yep, it's on. This is a very short presentation, a total of 7 slides, so it won't take very long. And then after that, we're up here to answer any of your questions. So we're doing a 5-lane section that shows up on the typical section board. The normal typical section for the entire roadway is 5 lanes, with the 5th lane being a continuous left turn lane the entire length of the project. Where we get to the signalized intersections, there's 3 of them. We'll have a dedicated left turn lane that will be controlled by the traffic signal. And then the 2-way left turn lane will pick up on either side of the intersection. There'll be 2 through lanes in the westbound direction and also 2 through lanes in the eastbound direction. We're also constructing a multi-use path that's 10 feet wide on both sides of the roadway that will facilitate bicycles as well as pedestrians and people that are roller skating and walking and the like. We'll have curb and gutter. So we'll have a closed drainage system the entire way, curb and gutter on both sides. That's about it. With the closed drainage system, we'll have ponds that you can see on the boards is in the green. Some of those sites have already been purchased. Some of them have yet to be purchased. We'll have roadway lighting along the entire length. We'll have 25-foot high. It looks like right now 25-foot high decorative poles, and the lights will be on both sides. Typically, the lights will be placed on the back side of the multi-use path, between the multi-use path and the right-of-way line. There may be some circumstances when we have to put them in between the curb and gutter and the sidewalk. We don't know that, or the multi-use path, we don't know that yet. They will be, as I said, decorative lighting, and they'll be painted city center green. We will have three signalized intersections. It's the same 3 as today. The signal at Salford, Cranberry, and then Chamberlain behind Bill there. The existing signals are going to be completely replaced with new ones that will be on mast arms. Is that right? Yeah, mast arms. And when we put the signals in, we're hoping to get those in early and get them set back far enough so that they'll be out of the way of the construction activities, but we're still working through the maintenance of traffic to see if that timing works. So we're not sure of that at this point. We will have pedestrian crossings with push buttons and full PED features at each one of the signalized intersections, so that'll improve safety for the pedestrians. And the mast arms, the poles, and then the mast arms going across the lanes will also be city center green. So the project schedule, the environmental permit application has been submitted. We're in the right now our design is progressing from 60% plans, which this is what you see up here is represents the 60% design. Of course, we have full plans, not just graphics on a roll plot. Our 90% plans are going to go in the next couple of weeks or so to the city for review. The design and permitting is scheduled to be all completed by the end of June of this year. The acquisition of the vacant lots for the ponds will begin here in April. I think it's going to the city commission for approval in April. And we need those sites for the ponds in order to be able to get a construction permit for the roadway. The city is still looking at funding sources for construction. They don't have all the money they need to build the whole project from west of Salford all the way towards Toledo Blade, so they're working on that. In terms of one of the questions that I'm sure everybody has is when will actual construction be started? Once we get the plans and the permit and everything is on our end is done in June, late June sometime, the city has to acquire the ponds. They can't go out for construction without having the pond sites in hand. So that process takes a little bit of time. Best guess is that the construction would start late this year or in the first quarter of next year by the time you let it out for bid, and then you go through the 90-day bidding process, and then you have to do a contract with the contractor. All of that takes time. So we're looking at the end of 19, first quarter of 20. There are comment forms available in the back, right? They're in the back. Yes. So please, if you make any comments here verbally today that you would like the city staff or the engineer to take a look at, it needs to be in writing. Anything verbally, we're not dealing with. I mean, we can't take the notes and whatnot. So if you have a comment that you would like to make, please put it in writing with your name on it. And then the city will look at it, and we'll look at it and decide, whether it's valid and we need to do something about it, or you're just saying, hurry up, get the construction done, and so traffic will improve. So that's it. I told you it would be brief. It was brief, and we'd be glad to take any one of your questions. Yes, sir.
What's the length of the project? How long do you expect it to last? What's the length of the roadway?
Okay, can you?
How long, in terms of miles, how long? It's on. In terms of miles, how long is the project?
2.75.
How long do you expect it to take?
We haven't worked out the construction duration yet, but off the top of my head, I'd say a couple of years, more or less.
Is it going to be done in sections or all at once?
The city's intent is to do it in one construction package, and it's one construction package.
So I assume then there'll be a lot of traffic delays and detours, et cetera, during the project?
During the construction, the contractor will be obligated to maintain 2 lanes of traffic at all times. Now, there will be periods of time when they're going to have to close and maybe go to one-way traffic. I mean, one-lane traffic. I forget the one-way, that's a mistake. One-way traffic, or one-lane traffic, where they'll have a flagging operation to alternate the traffic as they're doing open cuts across the roadway to put in the drainage pipes. There's nothing that you can do about that. The other option would be to do it at night, but then you got all the noise associated in the backup alarms and all that stuff, which would be difficult.
And one last question. Are there any bridges that need to be reconstructed?
Bill, so we're dealing with, there's four water crossings. The Blue Ridge Waterway and the, however you pronounce that, and then wherever the other two are. Yeah, so we're extending all four of those, and I think, are we,
Well, the cross drains are being replaced.
yeah,
So we have cross drains, and 3 of them that will be replaced with new pipes. And the McAfee waterway, is the way that I pronounce it. Okay. Is, the existing bridge is going to remain, and we're going to extend it, so we're going to widen that bridge.
one of your questions was detours. We're not anticipating that we're going to have detours where we force the traffic off of Price Boulevard. But there will be periods of times when we're replacing those culverts, we'll shift traffic with temporary pavement to allow these big pipes to be replaced under the traffic.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions. On the north side of the street, we have those massive power lines in our front yard and our backyard. Does this project change or eliminate any of those power lines?
No.
Those will be in
No.
place. On the north side of the street, we have power lines in front of our house, our front yards, and our backyards, and I was just hoping, against hope, that those would somehow be eliminated through this process. And then my other question is, I'm hearing, and not from major reliable sources, but that the sanitation issue is going to affect us that have septic tanks. Is that part of this project? I've heard things about liens until we get into a sewer system. Is the sewer system part of this project? And at some point, we're going to be required to tap into it?
I will defer to the city staff on that.
Sure.
No, the project does not include any sanitary sewer for people that live along the roadway. We're not extending the sewer for the collection system.
Yes, ma'am.
I have several questions related
Sorry.
to the look and feel and aesthetics and safety. It doesn't look as though there's any trees or landscaping, is that correct?
At this point in time, that is correct. There will be, we may look at landscaping around the ponds, but along the street, there is none.
So when you do the ponds, I've been past all the properties that have been acquired so far, and they're vacant lots, which means that they're home to native trees, sable palms, other shrubbery, home to birds, and they quiet the neighborhood. So is there going to be, DOT, when I read in the regulations, it talked about preservation of natural vegetation in stormwater pond design. Is there any plans to preserve the nature of these lots, which, contribute to the quiet and beauty of the neighborhoods? They're really not on Price largely. They're on Race and Altoona and back behind Price. I'm not sure if people are aware that they're not on Price.
You had several questions. Can I address
Yeah.
that one first?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. When we build the pond, that will remove virtually all the trees that are on that lot. Now, the question, the response to that question is the city going to plant new trees around the perimeter of the ponds for aesthetics or whatever? Don't know that at this point, but you will never get the dense tree planting, the density of trees on once the ponds are constructed, because you just don't have enough room around the perimeter to be able to do that.
Well, some of them are like double lots, and perhaps some care could be taken around the perimeter to preserve some of the natural vegetation that's there. I'm not a road designer, but, I'm not sure people are aware of how much this is going to change not just Price, but the neighborhood. If you walk through the neighborhood, you walk down Price, and it's hot now. When you add 80 feet of asphalt and concrete with no trees, it's going to be hotter yet. Now, I walk my dogs. I'm going to have to walk them first thing in the morning because, although the ULDC talks about shading paved areas and planting trees, and there's even a a statement in conjunction with the comprehensive plan that says that it's a policy that the ULDC states is in conjunction with the comprehensive plan that says that the city shall plant trees, what's it say specifically, along arterial and collector roadways that traverse the city. Now, this is an arterial road that traverses the city, and it's going to be 80 feet of concrete without nary a tree in sight. So it seems as though the comprehensive plan and the ULDC are more aspirational than the 35% canopy preservation. I mean, if you're not going to preserve it in the retention ponds in the neighborhood, I realize this is running into more commentary than it is a question, but seriously, I mean, you're changing the neighborhood significantly. You're heating us up, and you are creating a noise problem, you're creating an air pollution problem, small particulate air pollution. This is a health problem, and this is a health issue. I don't see anything dealing with that. I also see super blocks. I'm a pedestrian. I also ride my bike. I walk my dogs in this neighborhood. And you have super blocks between Salford and Cranberry is a long hike. And right now, people are afraid to cross the street as it is now. But you get those super blocks without any mid-block crossings. And there's signalized crossings. They have them in the out islands. They have them up in New York where, you know, I grew up. It makes it safe for people to cross the road. And yet you're asking pedestrians, you're doing everything here for the convenience of cars and nothing that supports multimodal transportation. Now, I don't know what you've got for bus kiosks, but right now people stand in the rain or in the hot sun. There's only 1 or 2 shelters in this block of Price that protects people from who are trying to use other modes of transportation. You try to cross the block with, you know, so I'm to walk up to Chamberlain or down to Cranberry in order to be able to cross safely with my dogs. When you could put in for not that much more money, considering the cost of all of this.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Okay, so on the pedestrian crossings and the mid-block is what you're referring to. We were just talking about looking at 3 different locations, mid-block to reduce that, and we're still looking at that to try to address that concern.
You need to do it because there's no safety islands.
No,
There's
I
no-
know, right, I know. And I would encourage you again to please make a written comment.
Oh, I will be.
Okay, thank you.
Rest assured, yeah. One last thing, you didn't really tell, you said that basically the vacant lots are going to be denuded during the process of building the ponds, and you do not yet know whether or not the city's going to replace any of the trees that are going to be removed. Isn't there requirements in the ULDC and the comprehensive plan to restore? I mean, isn't our aspiration to be 35% retention of canopy?
Yeah, I will defer to the city staff on that.
I would love to hear from city staff on that.
Excuse me, yes, we are planning to plant trees along the pond sites, around the perimeter of the pond sites.
If I may address that question, we had went through several iterations of different typical cross-sections for a couple of years with the City Commission, and they finally voted on a final one, and that is a typical cross-section that we are utilizing. At one point, there was a more heavily landscape-type typical cross-section with landscaping in the center. We're very limited with the right-of-way width of 100 feet. And so this is the final typical cross-section we're dealing with that has much less landscape, very minimal landscape within the right-of-way area of Price, and is more concentrated on safe travel lanes.
Well, you're talking about safe travel lanes for cars.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not talking about safe travel lanes for pedestrians, bicyclists, or anything other than moving cars along this 2.5 or 2.7 mile stretch of road through the heart of the city, which is a beautiful city potentially. And you've done it on some, you've done it on the way, but you have more room. I'm very aware of that. But what you've got now is a hot, barren stretch of asphalt that will cut the city in half. So one of the ways in which that might be ameliorated is if the multi-use path, which I'm very supportive of, and I'm pleased to hear it, that the bicycles are out of the roadbed because there's no place for the bikes to really be safely in this narrow road.
Yes, ma'am.
There's skiddy lanes. Make the wider utility strip the one by the mailboxes where you could put in trees, and make the narrower strip on the far side of the mailboxes where the tall power poles are and so on. Now, I don't know if that's possible at this, it's just flipping the utility strips, but that would allow for some landscaping along this roadway, which would help fulfill the goals of the ULDC, which are to shade paved areas and to maintain tree canopy, and would beautify this roadbed. I mean, as it is, you're making this very difficult in a residential neighborhood.
Okay, so let me address your last comment there about the alternative of providing a wider utility strip and shifting the multi-use path towards the right-of-way line. We looked at that, looked real hard at that. The problem is that with all of the septic tanks, septic fields that are in the front of most of the houses, we don't want to get into those because that is a whole can of worms that we just simply don't want any part of. And so in order to make that work, because of the grade differential between the existing ground at the right-of-way line and then the close proximity of a lot of the septic fields, we'd have to put in a lot of retaining wall. And if we had to put in retaining wall, we would then have to put up handrail on the top of the retaining wall, and that would raise the cost. And one of the votes that was done, 2 years ago or so, was people did not want the retaining walls in front of their houses as well as the handrails that would be associated with them. So we eliminated that option at that time.
Yeah, I've been following this project since I became aware of it a considerable length of time ago. And one of the things I've noticed is that the city has veered far away from the recommendations of the 2009 study, which I did happen to read from cover to cover. And one of the things they recommended was that you buy up the property and that you, on one side of the road or the other, and that you build the roads you really need to build, which would be more like a Sumter build-out or whatever. For cost considerations, this was abandoned. But I have to ask you is how long will this road be serviceable, given that there's no plan for networking, better networking of east-west corridors, and the fact that the study said that Price Boulevard cannot carry the burden of east-west traffic for the city of Northport as it builds out. And I don't know about you, but I'm hearing hammers all over town. So the question is, how long is this good for? You're going to put a lot of money into it, and would you be better off putting the money into building the proper east-west wider corridor and biting the bullet now, or putting us through this twice in a very short period of time because we're only a third built out?
Jerry Traverso, Engineering Division Manager. Based on that 2009 study, they said that if nothing is done to the community, price will have to be in the ultimate, if all the lots develop, will have to be 6 lanes, 3 in each direction, unless we look for potential connection between neighborhoods to the north and to the south, that they will not have to go down to Price to go around and then go to, for example, to Lamar School. We are finishing a scope, and we met with commissioners on a multimodal connectivity study, citywide, not only this area. We said if we're going to embark on this, let's go do the whole city. And one of our first tasks is to whoever is selected to look at potential connectivity between neighborhoods in this Price area, and also to provide a frontage road either on the south side or on the north side of 75. That is in the pipeline to be done in the coming years. But we look at the alternative of buying one of the 2 sides, and probably everybody here is a resident of Price, know that the north side will be the best side because now we have all this model homes on the south side, and the south side is more developed. I think that a ballpark figure of buying all the lots with the legal fees and everything, and then demolishing the residents that are there already, just to have it a blank slate to do the design, it was about 100 to 80 to 100 million dollars. And then you put the $30 million of the road, that would be like 130. So if we do this project now, which is in the 28 to 30 million dollars, and we do the study, I can guarantee you with another $100 million, we can do a lot of little, because the bridges that we provide, the problem that we have in the city is that all these neighbors are severed by the canals. So if you live in this area, you cannot connect to that one going to Price. You have to go to Price if you want to go from one neighbor to the other. So these neighborhood bridges can be done at a lower cost, and it will not be this big avenue, and it will keep the sense of a small community, but it will provide the connectivity. Because if I live down here, I'm not going to go all the way north to cross Price. If I live down here, I cross the bridge that is in my neighborhood and go north on one of these main lines. So that is in the plans. We got to advertise it and select a consulting firm that will do the study. But we are taking steps to kind of solve this problem, because we are aware that if the city develops and nothing is done, just Price, we probably will be revisiting this in a couple of years down the line.
That'd be great, because I've heard about the connectivity study for a number of years now, and this is first I've heard that actually the scope of work has been completed in order to do it. A lot of the problems with Northport is caused by these cul-de-sac neighborhoods that don't connect to anything. And even if they connected, one Cranberry to Salford or whatever, it would help a lot. Now, one of the problems is that, one of the concerns I have is that the plan for Price, is that going to be the plan for north-south corridors? Cranberry, Salford, is what you do here going to be replicated in other major thoroughfares in the city?
No, ma'am. We will take each one separately. This is not going to be a boilerplate for all other road widening projects. We will do each one separately.
Yes, sir.
This relates to the lady's comments there. The 10-foot sidewalk that we've got, multi-use path, I'm not sure what the one they're building on 41 is, but I'm not sure that it's 10 foot wide. Is there a rationale why we need 10 foot versus a lesser sidewalk area that maybe they could use the extra for doing some landscape purposes?
For the sidewalk that we're talking about having it close, and I remember this because I was involved developing all the alternatives. We had it as, it was mentioned before, it was pushed all the way to the back and to provide that green space in between. But then there was conversation of what will happen with the pool guy that want to go and service my house. Then the drive will not be long enough for him to pull in with his trailer. So we put the sidewalk closer to the road, and then you have approximately 8 feet of green space between the back of the sidewalk to the right-of-way. So the pool guy or your landscaping service personnel truck can pull in and kind of park behind it without blocking the sidewalk. Now, if you're gonna have in this sidewalk bikers and pedestrians, bringing it a little bit less than 10 foot will provide them not enough separation for them. So in order for safety, if you're a lady with the baby in a stroller and somebody's driving a bike, 10 foot give them enough space for them to go around, and it will increase the safety of both the bikers and the pedestrian using this. So we're trying to accommodate all potential users that will be utilizing this facility.
I understand that, but it's not like you're going to have high-speed bicycles riding down this sidewalk, where if you could plant some trees or something in that, say, an 8-foot wide sidewalk, you take another 2 and put it in that green space, and you accommodate the concerns of this other woman that this is asking about the trees and the aesthetics down through there.
I just want to point it out that now that you mention it, it just light a bulb in my mind about our operation. I wish that our operation manager would be here. On Sumter and on Toledo, that we have this nice, especially Sumter closer to 41, that we have that kind of a wider sidewalk and we have the trees in between. Those trees, those roots eventually uplift those sidewalks, and it creates a maintenance nightmare. And we went through several iterations, tried to provide a solution that will satisfy everybody. Unfortunately, in this world, there's not one size fits all. And before it was the center landscape median that will have a lot of trees and nice canopy. And I was not here at that time, but I heard that, you know, as residents, you have your concerns, like if I live here, I will have to go all the way over there, do a U-turn and come back. And because of that, it was listened, so it was taken out. So things have been taken out, put back, moved far away, moved back in, and this is what was approved by commission.
Nick Trolley, Cranberry. Couple of things. Number one, I'm originally from Levittown, PA, which is like the place that you all were looking at one point to consider how the city's laid out. And you're talking about these connecting streets between the neighborhoods. And I can tell you for a fact what's going to happen is maybe about 10% of the people will use those. Your money be better spent making the road, the wider road that was proposed back years ago, and actually putting that in and making it a safer road. And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it a requirement with the state to have a 120-foot roadway and also having bike lanes and sidewalks? And you know, I'm not hearing any of that. I'm hearing 100-foot, and I'm also wondering what's going to happen with emergency vehicles. And I understand this is for the good of the many, not the good of the one. So I think we need to look at this more logically and not have to come back and redo this again and spend millions again. And I disagree with your 100 million, by the way.
I gotta say something. I was talking to him earlier about that street, my drive, no drive. Nobody has said anything about the houses along there. Everything is room for the road. What about the people who live on it? I'm gonna have to have a road guard to go out my front door. And another thing, we just looked at it up here, me and you, they didn't even survey mine with a driveway. They did it before they put the driveway in. Now I won't be able to go out my front door. Are they gonna resurvey it or what?
Yes, for the survey, we missed that you had a driveway there because we were getting resurvey of lots that the house had been constructed since the survey was done. We didn't recognize that you built a driveway since, you know, the survey was done because your house was already there, but we'll have that surveyed and we'll put that driveway connection in for you.
But everything has been said about this road to road to road. What about the people who live on the road right on Price Road? I mean,
Right.
we gotta live with this, right?
Okay.
That has been an issue since the start of the project, and it's unfortunate, but the city has 100 feet of right-of-way, and we're trying to accommodate and minimize the impact on the driveways and the houses that are along the road, and we're doing the best that we can, and that's all that we can do. Okay. I mean, that's the reality. The city wanted to move forward with multi-laning Price, and the solution that we had that was the optimal solution to try to take care of all the competing interests. When you're trying to put 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag, this is what was approved by the commission, and it's about the best solution that there is.
How did Price end up like this situation anyway?
I don't have an answer to that. Yes, sir.
Well, okay, this project is in still the planning stages, right? You haven't voted on it yet, have you? And
No, it's been approved. That typical section has been approved by the commission.
Okay, so the whole project's approved right now from Cranberry, or not Cranberry, but Toledo Blade, all the way through to Sumter. It's all approved. You voted on it in council.
That's correct.
Okay. I didn't know that that had been voted on yet. Thanks.
Okay, I am new to the area. I just bought a house right on Price Boulevard, so I do not know all of the logistics and what's in the plans. I want to know specifically how much of my front yard is going to be taken from me for this project.
The short, I obviously don't know where you live, but the answer is that your front yard up to the right-of-way line, so that's within the right-of-way, that will be disturbed through the construction. Anything beyond the right-of-way line, we are hoping will not be disturbed through the construction. On some lots, and it could potentially be a lot of the lots, we are going to need an easement in order to construct the driveways to make your driveway, and not you particularly, but most of the people here, the driveways are a better grade. So you don't come off the sidewalk and it's real steep. If we reconstruct the driveways back into your property more, it will flatten that grade and make it better. In terms of your yard, for the most part, I don't believe that we're going to be taking your front yard that you personally own.
Okay.
The grass that's within the right-of-way, that will be disturbed as part of the construction.
Okay, so the walkway that's currently there, is that going to be torn apart and reconstructed?
Yes.
Okay.
That was pretty simple. Once you do this, and you take the right-of-way that you need, and the road's all done, then you're going to have to reestablish the right-of-way again, right?
When you say take the right-of-way, what do you mean?
Well, you already have the right-of-way to build.
Right.
Now, once the road's put in there, then that's going to have to reestablish the new right-of-way. So that means later on, if you wanted to, you can come back and take more, right?
No. The right-of-way that's out there is 100 feet wide.
Okay.
The city has owned that for.
Right. I know everybody has a right-of-way, but after, once you got it put in there, then you have to reestablish the right-of-way again.
No, the right-of-way is the right-of-way. So there's no taking more right-of-way
Okay.
after construction.
Okay.
It's what they own. The struggle that we've had and that we've been working with the city and American consulting engineers have been working together on, as well as a lot of input from the public, is how do we fit everything within the existing right-of-way and not buy more?
All right, that's good.
Okay, this is a little forward thinking here. When construction is being done, you said you don't anticipate any detours. What about the detours that just naturally take place because people don't want to wait while construction's being done? We see that now because Price is so congested. They cut through Race and Williams and enter Simcoe and go flying down Simcoe to Salford. They put up 4 pole barriers to prevent people from doing that. Out of 40 that were placed, there's only 12 standing. They drive right over them and enter Simcoe. And it's a neighborhood road with no sidewalks, so people walk their dogs on the road, ride their bikes on the road. We even have a young woman who's in a scooter and a young man who's in a scooter on the road. And there's a sharp curve in the road. So I don't know if there's any forward thinking into how to protect some of those neighborhoods where people will be shooting off of Price just to cut through real quick and pull back out.
And just to add to that, I'm her husband, I'm Ray. It was 15 of those still standing and 28 missing. Our daughter, when she was in high school up in Maryland, when I had to change the oil in her car, I found those plastic things under her car. So the kids like bobbing over those things. They don't stop anything. So I don't know why, even if you go to replace them, why use those?
Couple of things. First of all, that's the reason, one of the main reasons we're widening price is to add capacity. So we won't hopefully have as many people. We'd like to minimize it to nothing, but at least minimize people cutting through the neighborhoods.
Well, during construction is what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
And right.
What's there.
I would love to tell you that it's not going to increase traffic in the side streets, but you guys that all
When you
know
have
I'm lying through my
construction,
teeth. So, but the reality is that it's unfortunate, but it's going to happen. You're going to get more traffic people are going to avoid the congestion through the construction zone on Price. I mean, how much it's going to be, I have no idea. If it becomes a problem with speed and whatnot, the city can get the police department out there and try to do speed enforcement. But I mean, that's the way it is all over the country. When construction barrels go up, people start figuring out a different way of going.
And unfortunately, that's the misnomer on the delineators that we put up. People think that's going to help. People just drive over them. Unfortunately.
Something more sturdy than that would help some.
Mhm. Right.
You know, something that would damage their car.
Right.
I have a design question. I realize that as you've explained it, the wider utility strip is going to be closer to the houses to preserve driveways, length, and so on. Was the wider utility strip intended as additional parking for those houses also? That's going to be, those swales are going to be filled in for part of the drainage plan, correct?
Correct. The swales will be, the existing ditches will be filled in.
So the Northport swale coming off these houses is going to be minimized, and there'll be like a flat area until you hit the sidewalk?
That depends, because as when you drive along Price, just pay attention to what's happening to the existing ground right at where the right-of-way line is. And you can tell where the right-of-way line is by where the power poles are and whatnot. So
And the culverts, right?
Yeah, so you can figure that out.
Yeah.
So look at the existing ground there. In a lot of places, depending on the profile of Price, and we've tried to raise up the profile of Price Boulevard to minimize the impact on driveways and whatnot, there will be a grade differential between the back of sidewalk and the right-of-way line where the grade is, and then typically it slopes up to go into the septic
Right.
field.
Right now, what happens is because people don't like backing out into 30, 45 mile per hour traffic, cars back up onto the sidewalk as a turnaround. One of the things that the 2009 study talked about was looking at hammerhead driveways or some sort of amelioration for the people who live on Price, but that doesn't seem to be part of this plan. So when somebody comes in to service the pool, or people are trying to leave the house, or if you've got, 4 cars in the driveway, people are going to utilize those sidewalks for turnarounds. They do it now, they're going to do it in the future. So the question is, do you have plans to build extra strong sidewalks that can take the weight? Because, believe me, there's going to be cars on those sidewalks.
Yes, one of the things we were considering is providing 6-inch sidewalks as opposed to the concrete.
Just in the area of the
thickness.
driveways or the entire sidewalks?
For the areas that have the residential development, yes.
So it'd be the
So-
driveways, the
Right.
sections of the sidewalks by the driveway, where the driveways will be ripped up and replaced, that
Correct.
will be 6-inch concrete.
Correct.
But where the sidewalks are going to be backed out on, because they are now,
No, that'll be,
that'll
that
be
would be
regular
6
full-
inches also.
so the whole sidewalk, both sides,
Right, because,
for
yeah,
2
for
and 4/7
the,
miles.
yeah, we were,
It's going to be 6 inches the whole length?
we were going to do the 6 inches for all the areas that.
Is that because
are
you
have-
recognize the fact that people are going to need to use these as hammerhead driveways in order to turn around instead of backing out into 35-mile-per-hour traffic?
Well, for many reasons, including service vehicles.
Lawn care, service,
Yeah,
all the service
it-
vehicles,
It
like the
just
heavy
seems to make
trucks,
sense
trailers.
here.
All the trucks and trailers that won't be able to back out onto Price with any kind of ease because of the traffic will be able to back out onto the sidewalks? Is that part of the plan?
Well, you recognize that there's going to be times when there's going to be maintenance vehicles and so forth, yard service type vehicles, and, there is anticipated to be some traffic on the sidewalks, so we're going to make them.
Yeah, not just crossing it. They're going to be used, they're used now for turnarounds.
Okay.
So that's anticipated as a continued use by the city?
I would say that it's recognized that it's going to happen. It's the reality of the tight right-of-way that we have there.
It's absolutely right.
And that's why we're thickening up the sidewalk.
Okay.
The question was, will the speed limit be lowered from the current speed limit? What will it be lowered to? It'll be lowered to 35.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know why you can't just give us something in writing that we can take home and look at and figure out.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can post something on the city's website. We can, if you want to be on our email list, we'll be happy to send you something by email. Yes, ma'am.
And one other question, just because I'm simple-minded, are you just taking from the edge of the road up to the swale and including the swale, the ditch, drainage ditch, or are you going beyond the drainage ditch?
Well, I can't, I don't know where your house is, so I don't know where the right.
Anywhere, are you going beyond the drainage ditch?
I don't know exactly where the drainage ditch is relative to the right-of-way line. As a general statement, I would say that we are taking, the city already owns the right-of-way, so we're not taking any additional right-of-way. What will be impacted is the grass area from the edge of the pavement out to the backside of the drainage ditch as a general statement. Now, I don't know in any particular lot exactly where the back of the ditch is and the right-of-way line. The back of that existing ditch may be on your private property. If that's the case, we won't go past the right-of-way line. But as a general statement, we'll be going to the backside of the swale.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What's going to happen to the two bus stops at Southworth and West Price?
The SCAP bus stops?
They'll remain. They'll be relocated as part of the construction.
To where will they be relocated?
Well, they're going to be generally in the same location, but they'll be reconstructed.
Will they still be covered?
Well, yes, we will provide a place for them to be covered. That's a SCAT facility. The shelter is actually owned by SCAT, but that's the intent.
It'll be a covered shelter. One of the things we should clarify, however, is that SCAT is currently going through some changes. So although right now, our plan is to keep them exactly where they're at, and that's where the bus stops are currently located, if SCAT changes those, we will adjust accordingly, and they will have a shelter. But as it stands now, we will replace them where they're currently located in close proximity with the shelter.
Because I'm asking because they're right at my property border.
Yes, sir.
And they will not be coming more to my property, or if you relocate them?
No, well, if they relocate them, it'll be up or down the street, but they'll stay, they will not come onto your property.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question that I know we're going to be going to sewers. I don't know where exactly we're going to start, but are there plans that once this is all done, that in 5 years, we're going to rip it all up to put sewers in.
At this time, we did have a discussion about sewer in the past couple of years in the planning of the project. At this time, we will not be extending sewer down Price Boulevard. And there's no immediate plans in the future to do that.
Is this going to be the last meeting of this type before ground is broken? Are we going to have another meeting before you guys go ahead with this monstrosity?
This is our last planned meeting to have, yes.
The last plan public vote.
When is it, in real life, when are you gonna break ground? And when is it gonna be finished?
Well-
From when to when can we know?
Okay, so I addressed that earlier on. The best that we know.
You're late, so.
Okay, the best information that we have right now is that we would break ground at the end of this year, near the end of this year, or the first quarter of next year. Now, there's a lot of ifs in there. The city commission has to come up with the funding, and we got to get the right-of-way for the ponds, and you know, the permit from the water management district and all, and several other things. But you know,
And then it'll take how long?
we're estimating, we haven't done a construction duration yet, but off the top of my head, I would say it'd be a couple of years or so. Yes, sir.
Are the bus stops going to be in the same spots the signs are now?
As we are looking at it today, yes. But
Well-
SCAT is going through a study to see if they need to be adjusted. So when that study's done, some or all of those may change location.
Well, there's a sign at the corner of Price and Race, but there's no shelter. Are they going to put a shelter there?
That's based on what SCAT tells us in terms of where they want to have shelters, we'll provide a pad. SCAT will provide the shelter.
Well, she gets up, because when they get out, when I go out and pick up that trash every day, that's what she's talking about. Cups, coffee cups, napkins, sandwich bags. With that sign, there's just a sign there now. And there's no shelter. But if they, I hope they'll put a shelter, because there just isn't room for it, you know? Unless they set it up in my front yard on this right side.
Maybe on your front porch.
Well, that's possible. That is possible.
I'm kidding.
That's possible.
One of the things the city tries to do, our solid waste division, is try to periodically assist SCAT, because they only come down periodically to empty the trash. So I've made a notation to do a better job at emptying that trash along Price. They don't have a can? We'll get a can put there. I will have a can put there. That's it.
The cans don't necessarily help, because we have a can there at our street, and I have to pick up a lot of trash before I mow.
Okay, is it an open style trash can?
Yeah.
Okay.
People don't even bother, they just throw it next to me.
I know. I can have at least a covered AGC, a city AGC put there. We have those in some locations. And you're at what street, sir?
Salford and Price.
Salford and Price, and where are you at?
Someone at Price and Race corner.
Race, okay, all right.
All they got is a sign.
Yes, sir. Okay, we'll get something put out there.
How about taking the sign out?
Question. It was just mentioned in regards to sewers, sometime going down Price. If there is a mention of sewers to be done, why isn't it connected with this entire project? Why would you lay concrete, go through this whole planning, and then 5 years, 10 years down the road, here we go again? If you're going to do it right. Do it for the right of all the people in Northport, not just for a few. I have been here for 16 and a half years. I have listened to 4 different sitting commissions. And every time this has been brought up, it's been a different avenue. And here we go again. Now you're talking about delaying sewers. If we're going to do this project, do it right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, here's one right here.
Sorry, one final question. As part of the final design, you guys will be providing photometrics as well along price. There's a concern if regarding the shielding, light pollution onto the houses. I know there's been issues. There was an issue on Dollar General with neighbors complaining with those commercial properties on the corner of Cranberry and Price. So I'm sure that's going to be a concern with all these new light poles going in.
Yeah, that is a concern that we're looking at to make sure that the design minimizes any light trespass onto private property. So either the type of fixture would be such that it casts the light onto the roadway, which it typically is, or if it needs to be shielded, shields would be provided.
Two brief questions. First off, this is 60% planned, and it's already been voted on by commission. So that my understanding then that this is a done deal?
Yes, sir. This is the approved typical cross-section plan that we are working with. Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay, so the only way we can, now I want to go back to 2 commissions ago. Rick Newkirk stood up here and talked about the sewers and talked about having them, and that commission voted that down. We then voted in new commissioners expecting them to take up that issue and do the right thing. Apparently that has not happened. So my comment to the commissioners, and 2 are in the room, is that maybe you want to revisit this and put the money into the sewers and get that done before we go ripping up roads, because it's you're talking about, oh, we don't have to do it, but isn't there a state law and they're starting to come down about the septic tanks, and the state wants people to change over to sewers? I mean, I know that's out there, I know that's coming, so I really think we need to, like I said before, we need to get proactive, we need to do what we have to do, and we have to spend the money to do it, then we have to spend the money to do it, just don't do it. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Because we'd like to wrap up the questions and have some time to take a look at the plans.
I just have 2 questions. One goes to the gentleman here talking about septic tanks. I think the state level, they're recognizing that as sea levels rise, it becomes less, septic tanks become less effective. Even if you're not going to be flooded, the percolation isn't there. So City of Northport does need to be proactive as far as municipal sewers are concerned, because we're all in this state together and we're all at a very low level. And I'm not sure any of this is acknowledging that. One other thing is you talked about raising the level of the road during discussions previously, and it was kind of tangentially mentioned tonight. How is that going to interface with side streets coming into Price? At one point, I think Jerry mentioned that the road price was going to be raised about 1 foot. Is that correct?
It varies depending on where you are, but Bill was about 6 inches to a foot. The price is coming up, maybe.
Yes, and it could actually get lower in some spots too, because we're putting in the curb and gutter system. We need to have a slope to that curb and gutter, so we have to have what we call a sawtooth profile, which goes up and down. And then, so, which was a big challenge of the design, is we wanted that profile in the cross-section to fit well with the properties along each side and also at the side streets. And we actually have full cross-sections, and we have profiles at each side street that are provided, and we also have the proposed and existing profile shown in the 60% plans that we carry through those.
So to answer your question directly, we are addressing each of the side streets and making sure that the profile of the side street matches Price Boulevard.
Okay, so we can't anticipate road water coming off of Price and into the side streets at all? It's all going to be networked so that
There-
we're not going to be impacted by water runoff?
Right, there's a full proposed closed drainage system that's going to capture all the water that currently goes to the swales. It's going to be going to a closed system of inlets and pipes, and then that's going to be conveyed to ponds and to the canals.
Okay. Is the lighting that's being planned, I heard the gentleman talk about shielding the lights so that, I'm pleased to hear that they're going to be a nice design, green, and, you know, be aesthetically pleasing. That's nice to hear. But are you planning, I assume you're planning LED lighting for cost efficiency. Is that going to be white light, blue light, yellow? I mean, what's the, I mean, there's softer lights and then there's the prison yard lights. So what are we going to get?
Yeah, the LED lights, and I don't have an answer for you off the top of my head. The wattage for the lights are LED, it's about 100 watts, and they do come in different colors. So, you know, typically in residential areas, you use the softer yellowish type of light. On major roadways, you use the bright white light.
Are you considering this residential, or are you
Yes.
considering, okay, so we will have the softer yellower lights rather than the bright blue prison yard lights?
That's our intent.
Okay.
And so, you know, we need to identify different vendors that carry that particular light. It's going to look just like what you have on Sumter and on Toledo Blade. You know, the green pole, then it's kind of a curved arm, and then the acorn type light suspended from it.
In one last ditch effort to make this, put lipstick on this pig, is there any chance we could have, maybe where the bridges cross over or something like that, some planting areas on the outside edges? I mean, you know, I've seen some cities care enough about the aesthetics to put in, you know, large planting areas incorporated in the sides. Is there any way you could incorporate some sort of planting areas by the waterways, or by, I see some of the ponds are actually on price. The only ones I've seen so far that you've acquired are off price. But is there any way to bring some looks to this, that, because one of the reasons why I bought Northport, it was a pretty city. You know, Toledo Blade is beautiful. Sumter is beautiful. This is not going to be beautiful. So is there any way you could pretty it up a little bit?
We can take a look, we can take a look at that. We can take a look at that and see if it's feasible. I would like to address the comments and questions about the sewer installation. So going back when we began planning the project and working on it, there was a lot of discussion and a lot of meetings on the sewer line extensions. And of course, it was decided not to, because of cost, to extend the sewers. However, I would like to note that sewers can also be installed with directional bore rather than having to tear up the road. So that is something that can be done for the future. So if we put in this new road and then 10, 15 years down the line, the city decides to extend the sewers, that can be done by directional bore under the road rather than tearing the road up.
My concern was more that the city of Northport needs to be proactive with rising seawaters. Septic tanks are going to start failing all over the state. The closer you are to waterways, the more likely you are for coastal areas. We need to be proactive. Everything we do needs to be taken into consideration with rising sea levels and climate change. And how is any municipal project that we undertake, what is its impact through that lens?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, you're absolutely correct. And of course, with all the problems that we've had over the past year with the blue and green algae, the state is taking a closer, harder look and having new legislation come before them in this session. But you're absolutely right. And even for the housing building, as far as sewer extensions into the neighborhoods, it's something that we have to take a look at seriously doing. Of course, there's a heavy cost associated with that, not just to the city, but to the residents. But it's gonna come a time, and you know, there's been cities that you just can't have any more septic tanks. When the water starts turning green, and then you have to have a plan in place immediately. So it's important that we do as a city, because at build-out, we are going to have 250,000 lots here developed. We do need to come up with a plan. You're 100% right.
And that goes back to impact fees and whether or not we're charging sufficient impact
Yes, ma'am. Okay, any other questions?
I-
There's another question.
Excuse me. What I'd like to know is, we've heard a lot of talk tonight, not a lot of answers. You're not going to be doing anything for a good 6 months. I think it's very warranted for you to have another meeting before this project starts. What is your feeling on that?
We will definitely have another meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a plan. I'll make it really brief.
Yes, sir.
To acquire the south side of the street. It's not gonna cost $100 million more. That's just a number thrown up there. I don't even need that. Is it recorded? Oh, it's recorded? Oh. You acquire the south side. There will be no interrupting the traffic on the current Price Boulevard. It can be done in half the time because there is no interruption in traffic. If someone has a house worth $200,000 and you acquire the land, they don't become a millionaire. They want to be off price anyway. They don't want to be on a main street. I'm sorry, Family Dollar, you've spent a lot of time planning that building, it's got to go. That's the only way to go. Then people come into town and say, wow, Northport is actually planning for the future. If you have this construction going on, we got all this land, they're going to say, hey, if this is the way they're planning, we don't want to be here. We don't want to be stuck in traffic. That's a little bit. I got more, but I won't go on.
Thank you very much. Any
I'll
other
write it
questions? Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much for coming, and we've been more than happy to take questions up here if you have some questions on any of the maps. Yes, sir, thank you.